I'm Lisa Snyderman, and this is Conversations on Creating to Heal. Today, I'm really excited to be speaking with Heal-Corrina Thurston from Barre, Vermont, a wildlife artist who specializes in detailed, vibrant colored pencil drawings of animals, and also is an author of 2 art business books. Hers is an inspirational story of perseverance, adapting to her circumstances, and how she learned to work with her health limitations instead of against them. Welcome, Heal-Corrina.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you here today. And I talked a little bit about how you identify yourself as a wildlife artist and also as an author of 2 art business books.
Right.
Do you perhaps have a mission or a purpose for what you do and why you're doing that you might be able to share?
I've always loved animals and wildlife in general, and it was something that when I was really, really sick and in bed, I wasn't able to go out and see, and animals have always been really something I'm passionate about, but I wasn't able to go to a zoo or out in the wildlife or anything like that. And so I just naturally started drawing animals. So my mission now is to let people see animals and have them in their home in a way that I wanted when I was sick. And then with the wildlife artwork, I also work with conservation organizations, and I usually choose some of my pieces to give some of the donations to those organizations. So, for example, my African elephant piece goes towards 96 Elephants campaign, things like that. So that's a really big mission for me, is to help wildlife any way that I can. And then with the books, it's totally different. It's like 2 different sides of my business now. And that's just to help artists. I mean, it's just one of those things that sort of came up out of the blue in the last year and in 2017. And I didn't have any idea how much I was going to be helping artists. I was kind of doing it for myself at first. And then there was a slew of people coming in just saying how much it affected them and how much they were, I was brought to tears a couple times about people, how much it helped them, and let them know that it's okay to like set limitations and say no and things like that, as well as learning to market your business and stuff. So it was huge and very different. And now teaching workshops and stuff in the same avenue has been really, really incredible.
Thank you for that. It's interesting to hear these kind of 2 disparate paths, and now I really am intrigued as to how this came to be. So let's talk a little bit about your story. So everybody goes through some life events or some dealing with some darkness. So what was it for you, and how did it most significantly transform you?
It's definitely an event. So when I was 18, I was in college, and my freshman year of college, and I was going to school for biology and anthropology, I thought. And then in October of my first semester, I became extremely ill. And it's one of those things, you're 18, and I used to be a 3-sport athlete and a 4.0 student and things like that. And you think, okay, in the next week or so, I'll get over it, or in the next month, I'll get over it. Okay, next month, I'll get over it. And then I just didn't. And eventually I had to medically withdraw from college. And then even after trying to go back the next fall semester, the next year, I had to medically withdraw again. And by that point, I was in excruciating pain with migraines, and I was sleeping only about 20 minutes a night. So I was shaking and hallucinating, and I could barely move in my bed. So I was mostly bedridden. And I couldn't even really watch much TV or anything like that because my migraines were so bad. So here I was 2 years into that in 2010, trying to figure out what I could do, because I literally felt like I was just this burden on my parents, my poor parents. And none of the doctors were figuring out what was wrong with me. And I was just getting worse or just plateauing at this horrible level. And in pain all the time. And so
that must have been so frustrating and so difficult to physically Right, physically to deal with it, but also, like you're saying, if you don't have an answer, you don't have a diagnosis, so it's really hard to treat it.
Right. There was no treatment. And some of my doctors were saying I was too anxious. And I was like, well, I haven't slept in like 2, 3, 4 years. I think that might be part of why
You
I'm anxious.
think?
Um,
Yeah. So was
but
there something that you were able to do in the interim to help you process or cope?
in those first 2 years, there wasn't much. I mean, there was my 2 cats that when they came in the room were great, you know, and I could hang out with them and play with them. But other than that, there wasn't really anything for me to do. And I honestly have no idea what caused me to pick up a pencil one day and a piece of poster board that was like left over from high school in my closet and start sketching in bed. I brought it up into the bed, you know, on my knees, and I was like, I'm just gonna sketch something. And it was like a female nude piece that unknowingly at the time was a turning point for me in my illness, and especially in my depression and things like that, because the more I started drawing, I went straight to animals after that. And then the more I started drawing, the more I started matting and framing them and putting them up on the walls. And then after a little while, I started to realize that at least there's something I can do. You know, because
Yeah.
before that, I felt like there was nothing. I felt like I was absolutely kind of pointless, right? You know, and here I am needing to be fed and all this stuff by my parents, and can't even go out to check the mail most of the days, and everything like that. And like wincing when they come in to talk to me because of the noise. And so socially, you know, there was nothing. Emotionally, I was not in a good place. And then to see these pieces kind of starting to develop on my walls, I was like, when I would get up in the morning, I would be like, well, at least I did that, you know, like it was something that not only could I do to kind of distract myself, but also an emotional thing to show that I was productive still.
Yes,
Something.
right. That it just because you had this, you know, turmoil and this huge hard journey that you
Right.
were still you still had meaning, you know, you still had worth in some
Yeah.
fashion and purpose. So let's talk a little bit about what that was like for you. So how has creating and sharing, because I know that that's something that you do a lot of as well, how has that helped your healing process?
Well, at first, for sharing my artwork itself, the first thing I shared it on was social media. I did a little bit on Facebook, and I had no idea because I've never done art before that. And so I didn't know what people would think. I don't know anything about, you know, I didn't go to art school. I didn't do anything like that. So I just kind of threw a couple pieces up there to see what people would think. And the response was crazy. You know, everyone was like, what is this? How did you, what? You know, like, what is going on? And then when they found out it was colored pencil on top of that, because my artwork is very realistic and very bright and vibrant, most people haven't seen colored pencil in that way. And so to have that on top of it, people were just like, it boggled their mind, you know. And that was something that was kind of unexpected, or that reaction, and really, really satisfying because I was like, oh, I'm good at something, thank God, you know, because I grew up being really good at a lot of different things. And then I went to being not good at anything. And so sharing it with people has been really fascinating to see different people gravitate towards different things and have different emotional responses and things like that. And it's really satisfying to see people look at it and then I say, or somehow they find out that it's colored pencil. And then they're like, are you sure? You know, and then they go like this close, and they always have to go super close to see. And you know, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. You know, I did draw it. I spent about 50 hours doing it.
It's amazing. So that's what I was going to ask a little about your process and also how you were drawn to animals. And then I'm going to invite you to share, if you're willing, a little piece of your art, and we can put it up so we can see that it's colored pencil. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I started doing colored pencil was because that initial sketch that I had, that female nude, I really liked it, but I was in a really dark place. Physically and emotionally, everything. It was, I had to be in a darkened room, and because of my migraines, and emotionally, all of that. And so I really wanted color. I just wanted something colorful. So I was like, but how am I going to do it? Here I am stuck in bed. Like, how am I going to do that in bed? I can't really paint or use pastels, or, I can't use anything that's too messy because it's just not going to work in bed. And I won't be able to have the energy to get up and clean or anything like that. So I had seen a book a long time ago that had colored pencil, and I was like, I wonder if I could really do that. I wonder if you really can make it this bright, vibrant thing. And so I took, my parents bought me a set of, 100 or so colored pencils. And then I took that same drawing that I had done in the beginning, the nude sketch, and I just took like every color in there
Yeah.
and layered it and just kept going and going until I had this like vibrant color. I made her hair orange and her body purple and all these different things. I made her sitting on a lily pad in water. It wasn't very good, but it was really interesting, and it was a great experiment, and it was vibrant. And so from there, I started using colored pencil, and it was great because my hands are really shaky, but the way I had to do colored pencil was that I had to put pressure down, and it would stop or minimize that shakiness. And then it wasn't messy. I could do it in bed. It didn't smudge that much. There's all different things.
It really does have those photographic qualities. Really, it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. So you're saying it takes about 50 hours for you to do one of these?
Some of them do. So there's this size, and then they go bigger from here. This one probably took me more like 20 hours or so. And then some of them have taken me like 150.
Wow. And do you use a photograph as an inspiration?
Yeah, most of the time I do. And this one, you can't tell, but it was done actually on white paper. So the background, everything that's how deep you can get colored pencil. It's very...
To make black, you mean? You made the black?
Yep.
Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so amazing. Thank you for sharing, some of your art, some of your story. And before we go, do you have maybe some life lessons that you, along your journey with creativity and healing, have picked up that other people that might be going through something similar might benefit from?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things. But I've learned a lot in the last 10 years of being sick. But one of the things that I get told the most often, I guess, especially with my books and speeches and things like that, is that I'm so brave to talk about my illness and things like that. And I don't really feel that way, but I do recognize that the more I talk about it, the more other people are willing to talk about theirs or acknowledge their problems or accept and try to work around their limitations and things like that. And I just find that is really, really powerful. It's another thing that you learn by accident. You're just sort of, it's part of my story. I was just kind of talking about it, and it really has an impact on other people. And so in my books and things like that, I like to use examples from myself and really try to help people not feel the stigma and the guilt, like the overwhelming amount of guilt that people with chronic illness or problems or anything feel. I think we're bombarded with this incredibly overwhelming guilt and feeling like we're a burden and that it's our fault that we got sick or something like that. And it's not, and it takes a long time to realize it's not your fault. It's not my fault, right? And we didn't choose for this to happen, and it's okay, and it's just one of those things that if talking about my illness helps other people, then that's great, and it's taken some getting used to, be the sick artist or but now I've grown into that. And I think it's a really important thing to do, especially because I don't even know if we mentioned, but I have Lyme disease is one of my illnesses. And it's not that well known. It's well known, but not that well understood.
So you're giving people also an opportunity, if somebody has Lyme disease, also they can see that what's possible for one. So it's inspiration, but it's also permission to just be themselves and to be enough. They're enough as they are. Well, thank you for sharing. Before we go, I too have suffered from chronic illness for 10 years. And I have also discovered the same thing about sharing a story and having other people really, it's an opening for others to be able to share theirs and to help heal. So I appreciate you coming on to Conversations on Creating to Heal. Thank you.
I appreciate you asking me on.